Islands in the Stream, you recorded that as a duet with Dolly Parton.
I did.
Tell me about that, because there's obviously been something special going on between you and Dolly Parton.
Well, something special, but not what it sounds like. Islands in the Stream was written by Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees. And he brought me this song. He didn't write it for me. He wrote it for an R&B singer that didn't do it. And he brought it to me and he said, I really want to do this. So I had a recording studio in LA at the time. And I sang that song for 4 days. And I finally just said, Barry, I don't even like this song anymore. And he said, I swear it's like an epiphany. We need Dolly Parton. And I thought, well, I'd met Dolly, but I didn't really know her. And Ken Cragen, who was my manager, said, I just saw her downstairs. I said, well, go get her and let's see if she likes it. Well, as only Dolly can do, she marched in the room. And once she came in, the song was never the same. I mean, it was really that different when she sang with me than when I sang it by myself. It had a different meaning, a different set of values to it. And musically, it was so much better.
Now, you raised this subject by saying, listen, we have a special relationship, Dolly Parton and I, but it's not what you think.
Right.
You and I have been around a long time, Kenny. Neither one of us just tumbled off the turnip truck.
I did. I just...
Are you telling me nothing romantic with Dolly Parton?
I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart. I met her husband, first of all. And I was married to Mary Ann through that whole time. What we did is we flirted with each other for 30 years, and it was much more electric. I think once you consummate a relationship like that, it loses something. And she and I both believed that theory. So we did some massive flirting in front of the nation, but there was never anything more than that.
Well, I can say by firsthand experience, I mean this in no self-serving way, when Dolly Parton decides to flirt, she knows flirting as well as music.
You know, I love her. Because the thing with Dolly, and I don't know whether she likes this expression or not, but we just did a new song called You Can't Make Old Friends that was written for us by Don Schlitz, who wrote The Gambler. And it was written for us about our relationship and our career. And it's wonderful and it's very touching. It's like, what will I do when you're gone? And it goes into all this stuff, when St. Peter opens the gate, and it's very touching. And in the middle of the song, Dolly comes over and puts her, my theory is that Dolly has no filter. If it goes in her mind, it comes out her mouth. She doesn't stop to think, maybe I shouldn't say that. But she came over, put her arms around me, and she said, Kenny, I just want you to know something. I could never sing at your funeral. And I was like, so we're assuming I'm going first? Is that what you're saying? But that's what's so wonderful about her. If she thinks it, she says it. You know what's on her mind. But she's a wonderful girl, and we'll go 3 or 4 years without seeing each other. I mean, every night someone asks me, where's Dolly? Like we talk every day. And I'm just going to start giving them her home phone number and saying, call her and ask her where she is. She's a sweetheart.
Well, speaking of the duets, plural, with Dolly Parton, you've said you think you sing better when you sing with other people. Tell me about that.
I think everybody does. It's kind of like running the 100-yard dash. You get out and you run it as fast as you think you can, but they put someone alongside you who runs it faster than you do, and you'll inevitably run faster. It's like I'll go in and I'll sing my part, and then Dolly or someone will come in and sing, and they'll do a better job than that. I said, wait a minute, I want to redo my part. And then you inevitably, I get better, she gets better, I get better, she gets better. But I think that's the beauty of duets. You see sides of people you don't see in their normal songs.
Tell me about the We Are the World project, how you got into it, what it was.
Well, Ken Cragen, I think, he was my manager. I think he was one of the producers of it. And Lionel Richie and I were good friends, and Michael Jackson and I were good friends. So when they started putting it together, and I was at the peak of my career. But boy, when I walked in that room and saw all those people, that was very humbling, very quickly. But it was a wonderful piece of music. And if you listen to it, it was, for a world that was so downtrodden, it was really very uplifting, and it was saying in so many words, we can do this, but we have to do it together. But that was one of the great experiences of my life. And I think it's going to be on display here. I have one of the few sheets of music that I got everybody to sign. I started off doing that, and Diana Ross came right behind me, and we got everybody to sign it. I think they must have raised over $100 million
They raised a lot of money
for that project.
By the way, you mentioned Michael Jackson. What are your best memories of Michael Jackson?
Well, he and I did a photography book called Your Friends and Mine. And I had a building in L.A. and a studio in it. Once I got Elizabeth Taylor and Michael Jackson, people were calling me to be in it. And the reason I think I got so many people like George Burns and Lucille Ball and Gregory Peck and all of these guys is that I promised everybody they'd be in and out in 15 minutes because I was shooting an 8x10 format. So you have to have a separate piece of film for every shot. I said, I'll shoot 2 colors and 2 black and whites. And if we don't like what I get, we just won't put it in the book. Well, Michael, I said, you'll be in and out in 15 minutes. He stayed 8 hours. He came over and he brought Bubbles, his chimpanzee, with him. And we sat and talked. And I think it's like Elvis, when you get to that status, you don't have a lot of people you can just talk to. He couldn't go anywhere. He couldn't be a person. And we talked about, I shot the first pictures of him with a hat because I think he was going to have some surgery done and he wanted to see if the shadows would cover it. And they're beautiful pictures, some no one's ever seen before.
What's the most interesting photograph you've ever taken?
I took one in Joplin, Missouri, and it was a house that was mostly torn down. And there was a sign on the wall that said, I lost my mom at this address. She's in heaven with Jesus and Johnny Cash. And I just thought that was such a wonderful thing. And it's just a little house. But, different pictures take on different meanings to you. I've taken pictures of Stonehenge. So it's hard. I took a picture of a guy. I actually ended up writing a song about it. He lived in a box in New York City, and he's called himself Mike in the Box. And Richard Marx and I wrote a song, When All You've Got Is Love. And we started looking at him retrospectively, saying, he must have been happy at one time. He must have had people who loved him. And now he's here living in this box. And it said, but really, you've got a lot when all you've got is love. And it's a pretty cool song. I was just listening to it this morning, as a matter of fact.
Where do you fit as a songwriter, by your own estimation?
I think I'm a specific songwriter, and I'll explain that in a minute. Most great songwriters need to write. I don't need to write. You put me in a room with songwriters, I can hold my own. I'll offer something, I'll contribute, and it'll be worthwhile. I believe that. I've written, along with a couple of friends of mine, some wonderful stuff. But I'm more emotional. I'm more even seasonal. I'm very Christmas oriented. I wrote a 1-act play with a friend of mine, Kelly Younkerman, and we did about 14 songs for it. It's called The Toy Shop, and it's based on a true story. And we did it on Broadway for 3 months, and then we did it on our Christmas tour for 3 years. It's a 1-act play, but we wrote some really wonderful, touching songs in that, and I'm very proud of that. So I know I can write, but like I said, I don't really have a need to write.